Good morning, beautiful. It is I, Buck of Clan Wild, welcoming you back to another episode of Buck's Books. So, as you may have noticed, I am behind in my episodes of Buck's Books. That is because I actually have a couple in reserve. I just haven't edited them yet, but I haven't been sitting down and editing them. So, rather than doing that, I'm going to make the problem worse by recording more that I'm then not going to upload for weeks at a time. Today, we're going to be talking about a harrowing book called A Child Called It by Dave Pelzer. So this is like the archetypal childhood trauma book. Like whenever there's a discussion about childhood trauma, and we're talking real childhood trauma, not like the McDonald's birthday wasn't good enough, like I narrowly survived. We're talking about Dave Pelzer and A Child Called It. It's interesting because it starts, everyone's more or less happy. Everyone's okay. Things are a little off, but everything's more or less okay. And then as the book goes on, his mom just gets drunker and more horrible and like way off the deep end, and she targets him. Like it all just rolls downhill to him rather than to any of the other kids. The other kids are treated like human, and he's treated like you wouldn't even treat an animal. It's terrible. His dad is there the whole time and just kind of watches it happen. He just will not screw up the courage to stand up to the mother. And it would be pointless to stand up to the mother. He's not going to talk her out of being insane. You can't love someone or convince someone not to have mental illness anymore. They got to do work. And she was not interested in doing work. She was interested in feeling powerful by abusing this child. Right? So it's dark stuff. I knew about a lot of it ahead of time just from what I'd heard from pop culture references. I knew about how she would beat him and starve him and stuff like that, and how the one time she tried to make him eat the baby's poop out of the diaper with the spoon. I didn't know about the gas, mustard gas. She had him making mustard gas in the bathroom, right? She'd tell him that he had to clean the bathroom, and then she would seal the door up. And of course, he couldn't leave the bathroom or she'd just beat the hell out of him. And she insisted that he mix ammonia and Clorox in order to get it super clean. And when you do that, you get mustard gas, which killed everyone in World War One. So she was trying to kill him. It was an attempted homicide. But she wouldn't buckle down and dedicate to it either, because I think on some level she knew she wouldn't be able to claim that it was an accident, and that's what she had been banking on this whole time. She wanted him dead. She didn't want him dead so much as she wanted to kill him. She wanted the power that comes from it. But where that showed most clearly, where she lost the most control, was when she stabbed him. And they were both sort of surprised by it. And then she just patched him up as best she could. But he narrowly survived. He narrowly survived all of it. And as I'm reading it, I understand I'm doing so from a position of privilege, right? And it's not just the privilege of not being abused, but rather the privilege of being raised with this set of morals that allows me to think I have agency. Because this kid was living in this perfect suspension of learned helplessness. He did not think he was worth anything. Half the time he wasn't worthy of shoplifting the crackers that he was trying to eat in order to stay alive, because once again, she was starving him. But what he could not conceive of being worthy of is better treatment than this, and he didn't think he had the agency. He didn't believe that he had the power to do anything. And that's true when you're 5, but by the time it came to an end, he was 12, and I was having difficulty understanding how at 12, you wouldn't try to kill her back. And once again, this is privilege. I get that. Because I was not raised in a situation where every day reinforced that I was useless, worthless, incapable of doing anything. You know, I was reassured that I could do absolutely anything all the time. And that apparently includes killing adults at 12. In my head, I didn't do that as far as I remember, but that seems like the kind of thing that you'd repress. Maybe he did, but I doubt it. Our man just could not conceive of striking back. And not only, like, by the time you're 12, you are, well, he probably wasn't too physically developed because she was starving him. But you still have more muscular strength than a child, you know? You still have more height than a child in most cases. Now, the mother was probably morbidly obese. I don't know. He didn't specify that. He just called her overweight. You know, she was always drunk. And she ruled through fear. That's how she kept everyone being him, basically, and the father, who was, again, spineless and also a drunk. How she kept them in line. But she's got to sleep sometime, kid, and you know you don't really sleep. And you know where the knives are, you know? You know how to make mustard gas. I don't know. It just seemed to me like at some point you had nothing left to lose because she was trying to take your life. You know, so at one point the fear has to be outweighed. The fear of repercussion, the fear of what she'll do when she sees that I'm striking back, that I'm being defiant, has to be outweighed by the realization that she's going to kill you no matter what. Like, eventually you would have died. And trying to placate her didn't work and never would work because she was doing this to you when you weren't doing anything. She was just making up things that she said that you did, so she'd have the excuse to torture you, you know? But once again, I'm not here doing any sort of victim blaming. I'm not here saying Dave Peltzer should have killed his mom, although Dave Peltzer should have killed his mom. Someone had to kill this woman. I'm not here saying that he did anything wrong. He did what he could with what he had at the time, and that's tactics. You know, and that's all any of us can do. I'm just saying, for my read-through, it was difficult for me to understand, since she kept upping the ante, how he wasn't able to match. But at the same time, like, conceptually, I kind of do understand it, because conceptually, he never had a win. You know, the concept of being able to match that energy was never presented to him, because all, like, his wins, his victories were occasionally saying no to her. You know, he couldn't conceive of this stopping. It had always been like this. And that's trauma. You know, that's the learned helplessness. It's like the elephants on the ropes. So, illustration of learned helplessness. When elephants are little baby pachyderms, right? These trainers who train elephants, they drive a stake into the ground and attach the elephant baby to the rope, right? And so the elephant can't really pull the stake out of the ground when it's baby pachyderm size. It's like 200 pounds. Yeah. So then it grows up and an elephant becomes 14,000 pounds. That rope's not holding. That stake is not staying in the ground. Effortlessly, that elephant could uproot the stake. But when it was a baby, when it internalized the concept of what the stake does, it wasn't able to do it. So it never thinks it's able to do it. It's just like cows and the little chicken wire fences. When they're little baby cows, when they're calves, the farmers will take them to them and just shove them into the fence, you know, drive them into the fence, and the cows can't get through the fence. They bounce off. And that the cows internalize, okay, the fence is impassable. So then when the cows grow up and they're over 1,000 pounds, it never occurs to them to try to run that fence. because it's impossible to get past, even though it's obviously not. You or I could go through chicken wire. It's nothing. It would hurt. But, like, it's doable. So, in the same way, our man Dave, he didn't think it was possible to strike back. He didn't think it was possible to stand up to Mom. He certainly didn't think it was possible to kill her. And eventually, he lucked out and had teachers who were competent and cared, right? So this is interesting. I was not abused, as far as I know, but I did look pretty abused. You know, I was weird in school, a little fat kid. I was always covered in bruises, and those bruises were from karate, shot for shot, and fighting. You know, like I was always scuffed up. You know, I never slept. I always had the dark circles under the eyes, and very evident signs of ADHD, right? Which itself could just be the manifestation of trauma. Because that's the trick. You go to 8 different psychiatrists, they're all going to give you a different diagnosis, but they're all probably just going to be trauma, you know, at some level. So I went through 12 years of school in some iteration of this. Always a problem, but never enough of a problem to get drugs involved. Never enough of a problem to derail class enough for it to be inconvenient for these teachers. And it wasn't until 10th grade, the one occasion in 10th grade, that a teacher pulled me aside and commented on the bruises and asked and tried to make sure that everything was okay at home. And I said, yeah, sure, it's okay as it's ever been. It's okay as I know it. I mean, things are insane, but that's no one's fault. That's just luck of the draw. And she's like, what does that mean? I said, it's no one's fault. Like, I'm not being abused or anything like that. I just live a stupid lifestyle. And she didn't believe me. And in retrospect, I thought that was very sweet, especially when I started working with in these different like youth programs when I first got out of college, because they won't let you work with adults in Philadelphia when you first get out of college. Try and make that make sense. You need to have a year of experience before you're allowed to work with adults, but you can work with kids right away. So that's what I did. It was not my passion or anything, but I needed to get that experience. When I'm working with kids and I'm this mandated reporter, I had to do a couple of mandated reports because these kids were in situations that it was pretty obvious were bad, you know? And that screws with you. So I imagine it screwed with her too, this teacher. And I feel bad that she thought that, because, I mean, nothing was wrong that CPS could fix. How about the things that were wrong with me were not inflicted. In any case, it's like the Hannibal Lecter quote, nothing happened to me, I happened. That sort of thing. In any case, that was the only time anybody ever asked. And this poor kid had been living in much worse than even the worst thought of what my teacher could have had was, you know? Like, this kid's coming in with these filthy, stinking clothes with holes in them because the mom wouldn't let him wear new clothes, wouldn't let him wear clean clothes. He was always starved. He never slept. He was sleeping on the desk. He was twitchy. He had the eyes, you know? Like, stealing food. It's pretty obvious, you know? And no one did anything for his poor little kid for like 6 years. And after 6 years, someone finally did their mandated reporting, and DPS got involved, and they took him away from the mother. And then he turned into like this self-help guru that talks about child abuse and overcoming it. And there's more books to the series that I plan on reading. It's talking about how he recovered from the trauma and his road to redemption and establishing himself as someone capable of agency, that sort of thing. As someone with personal power, as an adult. You know? And I plan on reading them eventually. I just haven't gotten around to it because I got such a backlog. But it was haunting. If you work in the field, if you are yourself a mandated reporter of any kind, if you work in psychology, if you are a survivor of abuse, I think it would be a good book for you to read. And that ends this chipper edition of Buck's Books. Like, follow, subscribe, etc. I'll see you next time.